Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Yodavas podcast. It's amazing to have you here. This is episode 14. The reason why I'm recording two episodes this week, first, today is Tuesday, the 18th of March, and I released an episode on Sunday. The reason why I'm doing more than one episode this week is because I realize that there's no set limit to the amount. Nobody has told me you can only do one video per week, and I felt like there's some things that I wanted to talk about and discuss. Some things that have been, you know, I've been thinking about. And if you want to go and watch the last episode, I really recommend you do. I feel like it is a very good episode to listen to. It's on the topic of friendship, and that's something that's very important to me. I feel like it's my favorite episode to have been recorded so far, and I hope that you enjoy listening to that. The setting is slightly different. I shifted things around to make it easier to set up. I hope the audio is good as well. And yeah, so today I just wanted to talk about why um, being alone isn't necessarily the same as being lonely. So basically, the benefits of solitude. I'll try to keep this short as usual. And yeah, so before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. Um, Feel free to reach out and share your thoughts, opinions, and questions about this channel or any of the other channels that I run. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I have a Ko-fi and a Patreon. All links will be down below. But either way, let's get into it. So, many people fear being alone. We associate it with loneliness, yet, solitude can be a space for growth and peace and creativity to emerge out of. And I feel like the reason why we fall in the trap of loneliness is because we mistake the two. The two are different. Loneliness is, in most cases, unintentional, whereas, in my opinion, solitude is primarily intentional. So, today we're going to discuss the difference between solitude and loneliness, which I've briefly spoken about. We're going to talk about how solitude fuels creativity and self awareness, and then the struggles of being alone and how to embrace it or get out of it. So, as mentioned before, in my opinion, the difference between the two is the intentionality. Loneliness is feeling disconnected, so to speak, and longing for companionship. Whereas solitude is choosing. Now, that's the word choosing, is being intentional about something. So, choosing to spend time alone with yourself, with your inner thoughts, for the sake of self reflection and growth. So, a person sitting alone in a book, sitting alone in a cafe reading a book is an example of solitude, whereas a person scrolling social media feeling sad about their lives or not having any potential plans is loneliness. Granted, you can have both at the same time. In my opinion, you can be seeking companionship, but also intentionally seclude yourself for the causes of growth. And I feel like it's an interesting thing because in most cases, we do have both in our lives where you wish you could go somewhere with your friends versus you just want to sit inside and read a book or something like that. So, what are the benefits of this solitude that I'm talking about? I feel like back to the thing on growth, I feel clarity and self discovery are the things that you get the most out of just taking an opportunity to separate yourself, even if it's just psychologically separating yourself or physically separating yourself from people, not in a bad way, for the sake of clarity. You can think better when alone in your head. And in terms of self discovery, the more you the more time you spend with yourself, or the more intentional time you spend with yourself, the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about you. And I feel like those are some of the best benefits that come out of just taking time to be in your own head. And one thing that comes out of that is you learn how you think. You think you know how you think or how you process thoughts and emotions until you sit down and analyze yourself, and then you realize, oh, okay, I don't think as well as I did, as I thought I did. Maybe the how you approach speaking, whether it's the pronunciation of your words, your pacing, whether it's the things you say, what you think of. And once you sit down with yourself and analyze and think to yourself, okay, this is who I thought I was, but this is who I really am. And being able to be comfortable with that can only come from taking that time. So solitude has that benefit. I also believe that it boosts creativity. As an artist, I do not think I've ever even drawn, written a poem, or created any form of music in a social setting with people around. Most of it happens when you can have a clear mind, a clear conscience, and be able to focus solely on the creative aspect of whatever it is that you are pursuing as a creative art. And that is another huge benefit of solitude, just being able to think and focus and concentrate on the task at hand. In this case, a creative task like writing. I cannot write when there are people in the room, not because of there's anything wrong with the people in the room, but because you'd have divided attention. You're writing here, and a conversation pops up, and you feel like you need to contribute over there, and then you continue writing, and then conversation pops up, and things like that. So that is another importance of solitude. And then another thing, I think a very simple one, is it just helps you rest. Gives you a sense of recharge. You can just cool down. Let's say after that creative task that I mentioned, you can just cool down, breathe out and continue with your day or finish your day that way just by, you know, taking time for yourself to just think and reflect on those things. And then it strengthens a sense of independence. Once you know once you know who you are, there's no one that can come to tell you that you're not that person that you think you are. If you say I am a confident person and you exude confidence and that's what you bring out in spaces, nobody can come and tell you that you're not confident because you discovered that for yourself by sitting down with yourself and saying, I think I have a knack for creativity or for this or for that. And henceforth, no one can judge you based on that because you know yourself. So that sense of solitude helps you to know yourself. So yeah, and I think one of this circumstantial solitude and decided solitude. Let's call them that. So circumstantial solitude is when you, let's say you had a group of friends, for example, and they all move to different parts of the country or communication gets cut off in one way or another. It could be one friend, it could be two friends, maybe the people that you were the closest with, the communicated the most with. Now, it wasn't your choice that they left or that communication got cut off in one way or another. And so that's circumstantial solitude. So you take that time to be able to better and grow yourself and know yourself so that even when, you know, that season ends, you come back as a new person. And the same applies to maybe even them. Maybe they got cut off from something and things like that. And then decided solitude is what I've been talking about this whole time. Is even when you have access to a social space or a space where you can interact with people. It's just saying, okay, I get that I can do that, but let me just take time for myself to reflect upon A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. Another thing I want to talk about are the struggles of solitude and how to overcome them. So there's FOMO, obviously, that's a very big one, fear of missing out. And it's normal. It's okay. It's something that happens. We're human, and that's something that we're social creatures by nature. Um, and fear of missing out after secluding yourself is one of the first things that will hit. What if this is happening and I'm not part of it? What if that is happening and I'm not part of it? It's okay. That's something that happens. But I feel like you need to think more of the result of your solitude more than the current moment in which you might or might not be missing something. Because a lot of the time, if you find yourself in that situation, you really weren't missing out on anything unless it was a big and important thing for you. Yeah, so another thing that this solitude brings is negative self talk, which is something that I've discussed in a few episodes prior to this, but it's something that needs to be dealt with as immediately as it enters. You need to attack it and say, okay, why am I talking to myself like this? If I'm trying to better myself, the better version of myself can't be more negative than the current version of myself. So I have to speak to myself positively and encourage myself. You look at the man in the mirror and you say, okay, we are not where we want to be, but at least we're better off than where we were yesterday, which is, again, another important thing to think about. Where you were yesterday should never be where you are today if you're trying to grow yourself and be better. Another thing is the social pressure to always be busy, I feel like. So your solitude becomes more of a way of escaping socialization instead of bettering yourself. So you say I'm just working on myself, but really you're just distancing yourself from people. And I feel like that is a very negative thing in that sense. And something, again, just like the negative self talk, should be dealt with as fast as it enters. So, how do we embrace solitude and make it more mm, enjoyable? So, we can start small. Just say I'm going to take 3 hours for myself, not a week, not a day, just 3 hours for myself to just think and reflect on who I am as a person, where I'm going, and things like that. You don't have to make it overly complicated. Sit down with a notebook and a pen and ask yourself questions. It can be anything from what is my favorite color to what do I feel like my impact in the world is. Things like that. It can vary, but just start small. So try engaging in solo activities like hobbies. You might have a hobby that is very social, like playing football or basketball, or you can have a hobby that is something that you can do alone, like programming or art. So start with those sorts of activities if you haven't already, and you will learn yourself more just by spending time with yourself is all I'm trying to say. So some other things could be traveling alone and things like that. But that again depends on whatever circumstances you're in. But most people just say just going out of your current environment by yourself. It could be something like going for a walk in a small park or forest nearby and just reflecting as you go. And then there's learning the art of doing nothing. I found this interesting because we talk a lot about self growth, which I have been for the last 13 and a half minutes. We talk a lot about self growth and improvement and all that. But in reality, sometimes all you need to do is just nothing. You just need to sit down on a chair and just close your eyes for like 10 or 20 minutes and just breathe the whole time. And that could be enough for the day, enough solitude for the day. You just need to just sit, breathe, observe without feeling the need to be productive. I find that the hardest, personally. I always feel like I need to be doing something, and I assume most of us do always feel like we need to be doing something. But in the end, it's about learning who you are, regardless of, how much time you're spending doing so. So, to recap, solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is a negative thing, solitude is a helpful thing. Loneliness can be unintentional, and um, solitude is either circumstantial or intentional. It helps with creativity, self awareness, and inner peace from within. And then everyone should learn to be comfortable with solitude because it leads to a stronger, healthier relationships. First, starting with you as a person, learning who you are, as I said, knowing you first before you even interact with other people. So, I want to end with a quote. If you make friends with yourself, you will never be alone. Maxwell Maltz. Another quote. Without great solitude, no serious work is possible. Pablo Picasso. And that will be it for this episode of the Out of Us podcast. I've tried to keep this short. I think it's about 15 minutes, but I've tried to keep this as short as I can. Um, Thank you for watching or listening if you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, I am really grateful to be able to share really anything. And I feel like videos like these will pop up here and there. And I'm still experimenting with setting and audio and lighting and camera work and everything. But so far, I'm loving making these videos. I feel like I'm enjoying videos more than I did making audios only. And yeah, so all links in the description below. Wishing you an absolutely phenomenal day. Take care, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.